really think those kids' lives are just a buggy line of code? If this system goes down for 5 more seconds, they're the ones who pay for it, not you.
The room fell silent. Keyboards stopped clicking. A dozen monitors bled red alerts into the dark, glass-walled operations center. But every pair of eyes had turned to the man in the Navy security uniform who had just spoken. A black single father, standing in the middle of a billion-dollar tech company, staring down a lead engineer like he had nothing left to lose. He didn't know it yet, but this was the moment his entire life would turn. To understand why a night shift security guard would dare say that, we have to go back a few weeks, when Marcus Cole was still just a shadow in the halls of Helios cloud systems. Marcus was used to being invisible. He moved through the lobby of the Helios Tower the way people move through a storm, head down, shoulders tight, always ready for something to hit. The marble floors gleamed under the harsh white lights. Giant screens floated on the walls, charts, data streams, logos. Everything about the building screamed power and money. None of it belonged to him. His world started and ended on the 17th floor at night. The rotating camera feeds, the squeak of his boots on polished concrete, the soft hum of the server rooms behind soundproof doors. And back home, in a small apartment in South Seattle, his world was a lot simpler. "Daddy, the bus is full," his daughter announced, tiny fingers lining crayons up in rows. "No more sad kids allowed, okay?" It was almost midnight, but Mia still sat cross-legged on the sagging couch, curly hair sticking out in every direction, eyes bright like she hadn't spent half the day at the hospital. In her lap was a small wooden school bus, painted yellow and chipped at the edges, no bigger than both her hands. Her mom had carved it before Mia was born, before everything had gone wrong. Marcus dropped his keys in the chipped bowl by the door and forced a smile. "Yeah?" he asked, lowering himself onto the couch beside her. "Who's inside today?" Mia held the bus up to the light. Tiny faces were drawn on the windows with a marker, crooked circles, little stick smiles. "Me," she pointed, "and the boy from room 3 with the robot leg, and the girl who cries when they do the beepy test. And—" She stopped, pressed a fist to her chest just under her collarbone, and sucked in a breath. Marcus leaned in instantly. "Hey! Hey! Slow breaths, Bug. In, out." Her heart always did that. Stuttered, dragged. The doctors called it a congenital heart defect. Marcus called it the thing that kept him awake even when his body begged for sleep. She tried again, breathing deeper like he'd shown her. The color slowly crept back into her cheeks. "I'm okay," she whispered. "Just tired." "Hospital again tomorrow," he said softly. "Cardio wants to check your readings." Mia wrinkled her nose. "The room smells like plastic and old socks." Marcus laughed, even though his chest hurt. "I'll tell them you said that." He watched her, memorizing every detail like a man studying a map. Her skin, a warm brown like his. Her eyes, so much like her mother's it was almost painful. The little scar near her collarbone where the first surgery had gone in. 7 years before, he'd walked into a hospital with a wife in labor and a head full of plans, research papers, and job offers. He'd walked out with a daughter who couldn't stop shaking and a death certificate in his back pocket. His PhD in distributed systems, the fellowship invites, the long nights spent building architectures that were supposed to keep critical systems from failing. It had all stopped mattering the moment his wife's heart monitor flatlined. The machine had glitched. Just for a moment. Just long enough to miss something. He never forgot that sound. Since then, his life had narrowed down to 2 things: keeping Mia alive and paying for the machines that helped him do it. Helios paid better than most security jobs. Night shift meant he could take Mia to appointments during the day. So Marcus traded in his lab coats for a badge and a flashlight. The world stopped seeing him as an engineer and started seeing him as the black security guy downstairs. But Helios did something else, too. It connected hospitals. It handled the real-time data for monitors, ventilators, infusion pumps. It moved the numbers that meant life or death for kids like Mia. He'd seen the client list on a slideshow by accident once. The name of Mia's children's hospital had been right there. At 2 in the morning, the building felt like a spaceship. Empty glass corridors, a low electric buzz, the city's lights drowned by rain streaking down the windows. Marcus walked his route, tapping doors, checking locks, nodding at the occasional engineer stumbling back to their desk with a coffee that smelled like burnt hope. Most nights, he paused just outside the operations center. Through the glass, he could see the big monitors. Maps of the country lit with colored dots, streams of metrics, server loads. Behind them, sleep-deprived engineers in hoodies and noise-canceling headphones typed like they were trying to hold the world together with their fingers. Marcus understood the diagrams better than half the people inside. He'd designed something like it once, in a paper nobody here had read. "You can't stand there," a voice snapped one night. He didn't jump. He'd heard worse, 1,000 times. A skinny engineer with dark circles under his eyes glared at him from the door. His badge read Tom W. "You're blocking the sensor," Tom added. "If the CEO sees anyone lingering around ops, she freaks out." "Got it," Marcus said, stepping to the side. Tom paused, squinting at him. "You're the night guard, right?" "Last time I checked." Tom sighed and ran a hand through his hair. "We're getting weird latency spikes from the pediatric network cluster. No idea why. But hey, that's not your problem." He turned to go back in. On one of the screens behind him, Marcus caught a glimpse of a graph dipping in a pattern that made his skin prickle. "That's spike," Marcus heard himself say. "It's not random. It's cascading off your message queue. You're probably overbuffering under load." Tom stopped, slowly turned around. "I didn't show you the graph," he said carefully. "You didn't have to," Marcus replied. "I've seen that pattern before." Tom stared at him like he'd grown another head. "In a security manual?" "In a paper," Marcus said quietly. "A long time ago." Tom snorted. "Right. Thanks, man. We got it." He disappeared into the glow of the monitors. The first time Marcus saw her up close, she looked like she belonged to another planet. Emma Lang, co-founder and CEO of Helios Cloud Systems. Every article called her a prodigy, a killer, a genius. Youngest woman to take a company like this public. Daughter of Korean immigrants. Built her first startup in a basement, slept on the floor, now ran the digital nervous system of half the country's hospitals. At 2:30 a.m., she stepped through the lobby with rain dripping off an expensive black coat, her hair pulled back, eyes fixed on her phone. The security lights caught the edges of her profile. Sharp jaw, sharp cheekbones, sharp everything. Marcus opened the door for her. "Evening," he said. She looked up, just for a second. Dark eyes, tired but focused. "Good morning," she corrected softly. "It's past midnight." Her voice was calmer than he expected. He smiled. "Guess that makes me early for tomorrow." Her mouth twitched, almost a smile, and then she was past him, her heels clicking away toward the elevator. He watched the numbers climb. 17th floor. Operations. He shook his head, went back to his rounds, and tried not to think about the distance between his world and hers. A week later, after a long hospital day, Marcus brought Mia with him for the start of his shift, just for an hour, until his neighbor got off work and could pick her up. The manager had approved it as long as she stayed in the back room and didn't touch anything. Mia sat curled up on the security office couch, wrapped in his oversized hoodie, bus clutched to her chest, eyelids drooping. "Daddy," she murmured, voice thick with sleep. "The building looks like a big, shiny robot." Marcus glanced at the wall of tiny camera screens, each showing a different angle of the tower. "Yeah," he said softly. "A robot that helps keep little hearts beating." "Like mine?" Her eyes opened a crack. "Especially yours," he whispered. She smiled, half asleep. Then you're the robot's boss. He chuckled. Something like that. She drifted off, breathing uneven but steady. Marcus pulled out an old textbook, Distributed Systems, a language he hadn't spoken out loud in years. Lines of equations and diagrams swam under his eyes as he studied, the way some men study maps back to a home they're not sure they deserve to return to. Upstairs, in a glass-walled office, Emma scrolled through the security feed while waiting for a call. On one tiny frame, she saw the night guard, sitting at a cheap desk, reading something thick and dense. Next to him, a little girl slept, wrapped in a hoodie, clutching a yellow wooden bus. Emma zoomed in. The textbook title came into focus. The table of contents read like an internal Helios architecture doc. Huh, she thought. For a long moment, she just watched them. The man's tired, focused face, the way he checked on the girl every few minutes, the way his big hand hovered over the page like it was an old friend. Then her phone rang, and she put the curiosity away. She always did. There were contracts to win, boards to appease, numbers to hit. Feelings about night guards and their textbooks were not on the agenda. The storm rolled in 3 nights later. Seattle was used to rain, but this was different. Sheets of water hammered the glass. Thunder rumbled low like a warning. The city blurred into streaks of gray and orange. Marcus's radio crackled as he made his way past the operations center. Unit 12, you near ops? Tom's voice came through, tinny and tight. Right outside, Marcus replied. What's up? Don't come in, Tom snapped. We've got an internal incident. Just stay out. Through the glass, Marcus saw it, monitors pulsing with angry red alerts, a map of the country slowly lighting up with blinking icons, engineers rushing to terminals, muttering, shouting. On one corner of a wall display, he recognized a hospital name, Mia's. He moved closer to the glass without thinking, eyes scanning lines of error messages, lost connections, timeouts, message queue failures, monitor heartbeats dropping. His heart stuttered. Tom, he said into the radio, voice low, what's happening with the pediatric network? Back-end anomaly, Tom shot back, breathless. We're rolling back. Marcus looked at the pattern of failures. It didn't look like something a rollback would fix. It looked like a structural cascade. If you roll back now, you'll lose the failover too, he said. You're gonna knock out backups. I said stay out of it, man, Tom barked. This isn't your lane. Another alert flashed. Signal loss detected. Pediatric ICU cluster. Marcus's hand tightened around the radio. In his mind, for a split second, he saw another monitor. Another hospital. Another time a system had hiccuped just long enough for his wife's heart to slip away. His breathing turned shallow. An access badge beeped. The ops door swung open as someone hurried out. Marcus caught it with his foot and stepped inside before anyone could stop him. The room was a storm of its own. Voices over each other, alarms pinging, code streaming by too fast to read. Hey, you can't be in here, Tom snapped. Marcus ignored him. His eyes locked on the main dashboard, reading the metrics the way other people read fear on a face. Connection attempts, retries, latency, CPU load on a cluster in the Midwest, a secondary node on the West Coast heating up to dangerous levels. And there, like a heartbeat starting to falter, the feed from Mia's hospital flickering between green and yellow. You're saturating the message bus, Marcus said, stepping closer to the console. Your autoscaler is oscillating. You're about to thrash the whole damn cluster. Get him out, someone ordered. A hand grabbed Marcus's arm. He yanked free. He shouldn't have had access. He knew that. His badge was supposed to open doors and call elevators, not terminals. But the security system hadn't been updated properly in months, and in the chaos, someone had left a station unlocked. His fingers hovered over the keyboard. If he did this, there'd be no going back. Security footage, logs, policies. A black man in a security uniform touching systems he had no authorization for. He heard Mia's sleepy voice in his head. Then you're the robot's boss. His wife's face flashed behind his eyes, her hand slipping out of his, up and down, flat line. He exhaled and broke the rule. His hands flew across the keys, typing a sequence of commands that had lived in his bones for years. He bypassed the overloaded queue, rerouted critical traffic to a more stable subcluster, temporarily lowered the resolution of non-essential data to lighten the load. You really think those kids' lives are just a buggy line of code? He snapped at Tom without looking up. If this system goes down for 5 more seconds, they're the ones who pay for it, not you. The room went quiet. On the screen, the flashing red from Mia's hospital flickered, then stabilized back to green. Other points on the map followed slowly, like a graph remembering how to breathe. Behind him, someone swore under their breath. A new voice cut through the silence. What the hell just happened in here? Emma stood in the doorway, rain still clinging to her coat, eyes sweeping the room before landing on the security guard at the console. On Marcus. No one had an answer yet, but logs did. By morning, Marcus knew there would be questions, and he wasn't sure he'd like where the answers led. The meeting happened the next day. Marcus sat alone in a sleek glass conference room that probably cost more than his car. Outside, the city shimmered under a thin drizzle. Inside, his reflection stared back at him. Broad shoulders filling out a security uniform, dark skin, eyes that looked more tired than scared. The door slid open. Emma walked in with a tablet under her arm, no blazer, just a simple black sweater and jeans. Up close in daylight, she looked less like a headline and more like a person who hadn't slept in a week. She sat down opposite him. "Mr. Cole," she said, "you know why you're here." "Because I went where I wasn't supposed to," Marcus replied, "and touched what I'm not allowed to touch." Her gaze sharpened. "Is that how you see it?" He shrugged one shoulder. "That's how it's written up in the handbook." Emma tapped her tablet. "Your badge accessed a core ops terminal last night. You executed commands that bypassed standard procedures on our hospital network. That's grounds for termination. Lawsuits, even." "I know," he said quietly. "So, why," she asked, "did you do it?" Marcus could have said a lot of things: panic, instinct, accident, but he had spent too many years swallowing the truth to protect other people's comfort. "There's a children's hospital on your client list," he said instead, "in South Seattle." She frowned. "Yes." "My daughter's there," Marcus went on. "Heart condition. I recognized their ID on the screen. The pattern of the failure. I knew if you rolled back, you'd scatter the load and things would get worse before they got better. So I didn't let you roll back." Emma's jaw tightened. "You're implying my engineers don't know what they're doing." "I'm saying," Marcus replied, "they were looking at the problem from the inside. I was looking at it like someone whose kid might flatline if those numbers went the wrong way." Silence stretched. Emma slid the tablet closer and rotated it. On the screen was a replica of the commands he'd run. Logs. System impact reports. "My chief architect reviewed your sequence," she said. "He told me that not only did it work, it shouldn't have been possible for a security guard to know how to do this." Her eyes locked onto his. "So I started digging." He felt his stomach drop. "Marcus Cole," she read off the screen. "Age 34. Former PhD candidate in computer science at UW. Specialty, distributed systems. Co-authored a paper on resilient messaging architectures used by Helios. We based part of our original design on that work." She set the tablet down. "You didn't put that on your job application," she said. "Didn't seem relevant," he replied. Her expression softened, just a fraction. "You wrote the skeleton of the thing that keeps my company running. And now you patrol the halls at night." He let out a breath that sounded almost like a laugh. "I wrote the skeleton of a system once," he said. "Then I watched another system glitch while my wife was on the table. After that, computers stopped feeling like a career and started feeling like a threat." He met her eyes. "I'm a black single dad with a sick kid," he added. "People don't line up to hand guys like me the keys to their billion-dollar infrastructure. Security guard is the first job that said yes and let me be home enough to keep her alive. That's the relevant part." Emma looked at him for a long moment, something shifting behind her gaze. "Last night," she said finally, "you saved us from a catastrophic outage. You could have taken everything down. You didn't." "I didn't save you," Marcus said. "I saved them." "The kids?" she asked. "My daughter," he answered, "and all the other kids like her." Emma leaned back, fingers steepled. "I want you to help us fix this properly," she said. "Not from the hallway, from the inside." He blinked. "You're offering me a job?" "A temporary consulting role," she clarified. "For now. We need to shore up the architecture before the National Pediatric Contract Review. And I want the guy who sees both the math and the hospital bed monitors to be in the room." Marcus's chest tightened. "I have Mia's appointments. Daytime labs. I can't—" "We'll work around it," Emma cut in. "Remote when you need to. Adjusted hours. I'm not asking you to stop being a father." "Most companies don't care about that," he said slowly. "I'm not most companies," she replied. "And if our whole business is keeping kids alive, maybe we should start by not burning out their parents." He searched her face for mockery and found none. He also knew nothing ever came without a cost. But when he pictured Mia hooked up to machines in that hospital, data flowing through networks he understood better than anyone, built on ideas he'd had before his life shattered, he couldn't walk away. "One condition," he said. Her brows lifted. "You're already in a risky position, Marcus. You sure you want to negotiate?" He held her gaze. "Yeah." "Okay," she said slowly. "What is it?" "I don't leave Mia alone in this," he said. "I'm not working somewhere that makes me choose between being a decent engineer and a present dad. I pick her up from school. I sit with her when they change the meds. I leave early when her heart acts up. If I can't do that, I stay a security guard." Emma nodded once. No hesitation. "Deal," she said. "You stay a father first." He hadn't expected it to be that simple, and he had no idea how complicated it was about to get. 2 weeks later, Helios stood on the edge of a cliff. The National Pediatric Health Council sat in a conference center across town, waiting for a live demo of Helios's improved foolproof infrastructure. If they were impressed, they'd sign a contract worth hundreds of millions and entrust every children's hospital in their network to Helios. If not, well, there were other companies waiting in the wings. Marcus sat at a workstation in the operations center, now in jeans and a plain gray hoodie instead of a uniform. His new badge said Reliability Consultant, but the eyes on him still said Security Guy half the time. He tried not to care. On his phone, a text from Mia waited. "Daddy, doctor says my numbers are better today. I told him it's because you're the robot's boss now." He smiled at the screen, then forced himself back to the dashboards. Everything looked stable. Too stable. He frowned, tracing a finger over one of the graphs. "Something wrong?" Tom asked from the next desk over. Their relationship had thawed, from outright hostility to cautious respect. "The traffic pattern," Marcus muttered. "It's too smooth. Live demos never look like that." Tom shrugged. "Maybe we finally did something right." Maybe, Marcus thought. Or maybe someone's smoothing it manually. He dug into the logs. A new module glowed in the list, recently merged, labeled as a temporary optimization by one of the senior architects, a guy named Reed who had not been thrilled about taking orders from the former night guard. "Reed touched the core last night?" Marcus asked. Tom nodded. "He said you were overcomplicating things. Claimed he simplified your failover strategy." Marcus's mouth went dry. He opened the diff. On the surface, it looked cleaner. Underneath, in edge cases, it was a time bomb. He stood up so fast his chair rolled back. "Emma," he called, voice tighter than he meant it to sound. "We have a problem." She was already on the floor, jaw set, blazer off, sleeves rolled up. Emma crossed the room in 3 strides. "What kind of problem?" she asked. "The kind that waits until you're live," Marcus replied, "and then breaks where everyone can see." Before she could answer, the big screen flashed. Live demo, on air. The council appeared on a video wall, doctors, administrators watching from a conference room miles away. A host began to speak. Charts popped up. Metrics climbed smoothly, too smoothly. "See?" Tom whispered. "Looks great." For exactly 45 seconds. Then one of Marcus's new health check graphs twitched. An edge cluster in the Midwest spiked. A secondary node on the East Coast picked up the load, then surged past safe thresholds. The messages began to back up. Marcus swore under his breath. "Here we go." On the demo feed, one of the pediatric ICUs began a simulated crisis scenario, a flood of new patients. The system was supposed to scale instantly. It didn't. The screen flickered. Data points froze for a fraction of a second, long enough for any intensivist watching to feel their stomach turn. Then, in front of the entire council, one of the test monitors on screen went dark. "Is that part of the demo?" someone on the call asked. In ops, every head turned to Marcus. Emma's gaze locked on him. "Did you touch the core overnight?" she asked, low and direct. The question hung between them like a lit fuse. It hit him harder than he expected, that sliver of doubt from the one person who had looked past his uniform. He swallowed. "No," he said. "But I know who did." His fingers flew across the keyboard. The logs confirmed it. Reed's module was trying to be clever, rerouting in ways that made the system look cleaner while hiding growing instability until it was too late. "Reed!" Emma snapped, looking around. "Where is he?" No answer. Of course. Marcus's heart pounded. On the video feed, the council members were murmuring, brows furrowing. "If this were a real ICU, that's a dead kid," one of them said. Marcus stared at the graph. He saw more than metrics. He saw Mia's name on a chart, a cartoon heart rate line, nurses running. Tom grabbed his arm. "We have to reboot," he said. "Full reset. We can spin some excuse." "Reboot, and you'll confirm their worst fear," Marcus cut in. "That this thing only works when it's not under pressure." The room buzzed with arguments, fear, blame. Marcus tuned it out. He looked at Emma. "Give me control," he said. Her eyes narrowed. "You have it. You're already in the system." He shook his head. "I mean real control. No approvals, no committee. 15 minutes. I either fix this in front of them, or we go down together. But I can't do it if every change I make has to go through 5 scared people who don't trust me because of the color of my skin and the job title I used to have." Tom flinched. A couple of others shifted uncomfortably. Emma didn't. 15 minutes. In that time, he could either build the thing he should have built years ago, or prove everyone right about what a black man from the night shift could and couldn't be trusted with. Her jaw worked as she weighed it. Out of the corner of his eye, he saw the yellow bus on his desk. Mia had insisted he bring it for luck. The paint was chipped. The wheels squeaked. It was the only thing in the room that didn't look like it belonged. "Emma," he said quietly. If this fails, fire me. Drag me in front of the board. Tell them whatever you need to. But if you don't let me try, and some kid's monitor freezes one day when it's not a test. He didn't finish the sentence. He didn't have to. Her gaze flicked from his face to the bus, to the screen where a simulated bed now showed a connection lost icon. Then she nodded once. Everyone, she called out, voice razor sharp. Step back. From this moment on, any change to the core route goes through Marcus. If you aren't him, you're red only. A murmur rippled through the room. Tom lifted his hands and rolled his chair away. One by one, the others followed. Emma moved to stand behind Marcus, close enough that he could feel her presence like a hand on his shoulder. You got your 15 minutes, she said. Make them count. The clock started. Marcus dove in. He ripped out Reed's optimization, replacing it with his original design, weighted failover, dynamic thresholds that adapted to real-world noise, not what made graphs look prettier in a demo. He throttled non-critical telemetry, freeing bandwidth for life support metrics. He spun up reserve capacity where councils couldn't see it, but patients could feel it. Most of it he'd written before, in another life, on a laptop in a coffee shop while his wife quizzed him on probability theorems. This time, he wrote it with Mia's heartbeat in his ears. Status? Emma asked, eyes glued to the main display. Wait, Marcus murmured. The frozen monitor on the demo feed blinked. Data began to flow again. At first in uneven bursts, then in a smooth, steady rhythm. Other bars and charts straightened out, adapting like a system that had finally remembered what it had been built to do. On the council's side, someone let out a low whistle. Okay, a doctor said. Whoever just did that, that's the person I want on call when our ICU is full. The host of the demo chuckled nervously. Yes, well, that was an example of our resilience mechanisms under live stress. Marcus almost laughed, despite the adrenaline still burning his veins. Emma didn't laugh. Instead, when the call ended and the wall screens finally calmed, she stepped forward between Marcus and the rest of the team. One of the council members was still on video, asking a final question. Before we sign anything, he said, I want to know one thing. Who designed the version we just saw? The one that recovered while we were watching? Emma didn't look at the architects. She looked at Marcus. Then she turned back to the camera. A man you've probably passed in the lobby without looking twice, she said. Our lead reliability architect in all but title. His name is Marcus Cole. He's a black single father whose little girl is in the same kind of ICU this system is built to protect. He's the reason your demo didn't end in a simulated funeral. Marcus's throat closed. He wasn't sure which part hit harder. His name in her mouth in front of power like that, or the fact that she had said black and father out loud, without flinching, as if both were sources of expertise, not liabilities. The council member nodded slowly. Then that's good enough for me. And just like that, the contract that would shape half the country's pediatric care was theirs. The promotion came 3 days later. No ceremony. Just a meeting in Emma's office with floor-to-ceiling windows and rain sliding down them in lazy streaks. Chief Reliability Architect, she said, sliding a new badge across the desk. With a salary that doesn't insult you, and a clause that protects your time with Mia. Marcus turned the badge over in his hands. I thought you already said I was that. In all but title, he said. Now it's in title, Emma replied. And in pay. And in authority. He exhaled slowly. You know there are people here who are going to hate this. I know there are people here who already do, she said. They'll adjust, or they'll leave. He studied her for a moment. You could have taken the credit, he said. Said it was your idea, or your architect's, or some faceless team effort. People do that all the time. Emma's eyes softened. My parents scrubbed floors for rich people who never learned their names, she said quietly. I still remember the day my dad fixed a water heater no one else could figure out. The owner of the house told him he was lucky they gave him extra hours that week. Never once said, thank you. She met his gaze. I am not going to build a company that looks like that, she said. For a long beat, neither of them spoke. The rain filled the silence. So, he said eventually, a faint smile pulling at his mouth, does the fancy new title mean I have to start wearing suits? Her lips curved. Only if you want to scare the engineers. He chuckled. Mia would hate it. She says ties look like snakes. Sounds like a smart kid, Emma said. His face softened at the mention of his daughter. She wants to meet you, you know, he admitted. She keeps asking if the robot boss lady is nice. Emma laughed. A real startled sound. Robot boss lady? She's 7, he said. Her taxonomy is limited. Tell you what, Emma replied. You bring Mia by one day, off the clock, just to see the place. I'll show her the server room. Maybe let her press a button that looks important but doesn't actually do anything. He pictured Mia's eyes lighting up at the wall of blinking lights, her hand small in his, the hum of machines that had once terrified him now under his command. Yeah, he said softly. She'd like that. So would I, Emma added, almost too quietly. He glanced up. Their eyes met, and something unspoken passed between them, something beyond CEO and employee, beyond gratitude and obligation. Something like the first spark of a new story that neither of them was ready to name yet. A month later, a yellow bus sat on Marcus's desk in his new shared office. The paint was still chipped. The wheels still squeaked. But now, next to it, lay a neatly printed sign, Do Not Move, Critical System Component. Tom had written it as a joke. Marcus kept it because it felt true. That afternoon, Mia wore her favorite red hoodie and a heart monitor under it when she ran down the Helios hallway, sneakers squeaking on the polished floor. Slow down, Bug, Marcus called, jogging behind her. We're in a building full of glass. If you break it, they'll take it out of my paycheck. I just want to see the robot's brain, Mia giggled. They're called servers, he corrected. They're called robots, she insisted. Emma waited by the operations center entrance in jeans and a sweatshirt, hair pulled into a casual knot. Not CEO armor, just Emma. Mia skidded to a stop in front of her, clutching the wooden bus to her chest. Are you the robot boss lady? She asked without preamble. Emma's eyes went wide. She looked at Marcus, who shrugged helplessly. Guilty, Emma said. But don't tell the robots. They think we work for them. Mia considered this gravely, then nodded. Okay, I brought my bus. She held it up. It carries kids, she explained. Kids who don't get left behind, even when machines break. Emma's throat worked. That's a very important bus, she said. I know, Mia replied. But Daddy says your robots help too. So I think maybe my bus and your robots can be friends. Marcus watched Emma blink rapidly, then crouch down so she was eye level with Mia. I think that's the best partnership proposal I've ever heard, she said, voice a little rough. Can I ride the bus too? Mia thought about it, then scooted over on an imaginary seat, patting the air beside her. Only if you sit right here, she said, so you can't forget us. Emma smiled, eyes shining. I won't, she said. I promise. Marcus's chest felt too tight and too full at the same time. Later, as they rode a real bus home, the city outside wet and blurred, the interior humming with soft conversation, Mia fell asleep with her head on his shoulder, the wooden bus wedged between them. On the other side, Emma sat awkwardly in a plastic seat, one hand braced on the pole, the other resting near Mia's sneaker, like she was guarding the child from the sway of the ride. Marcus looked past their reflections at the rain-streaked window, the city lights smearing into gold. For the first time in a very long time, the future didn't look like an endless string of night shifts and hospital monitors. It looked possible, messy, uncertain, but possible. He glanced at Emma. "Thanks," he said quietly. "For what?" she asked. "For seeing me," he answered. "Not just the uniform." She held his gaze. "For what it's worth," she said, just as softly. "You're not the only one who ever felt invisible in a room full of power." He nodded. The bus rattled on, carrying them through the wet city like a tiny capsule of light. Outside, the rain kept falling. Inside, a black single father sat between his sleeping daughter and a woman who had once been just a distant name on the building he cleaned. The toy bus rested in Mia's lap, full of imaginary kids who didn't get left behind anymore. Marcus closed his eyes for a moment and listened, to the rain, to Mia's uneven but steady breathing, to the low rumble of the engine. For the first time since that night in the hospital years ago, the sound didn't scare him. It sounded like something else, like a heart learning how to beat again. If this story touched something in you, maybe a memory of someone who worked twice as hard just to be seen, or a parent quietly holding everything together for their kid, feel free to leave a message for Marcus and Mia in your own way. Somewhere out there, there's a real single dad doing night shifts and hospital runs who might need to know he's not alone.